it can sometimes get in the way with Vanessa being closed off. That is actually how she would react.
This week I have felt almost shamed by one of our main characters.
And I am learning to see through the facade of one of our secondary characters.
My focus has been for the past several weeks on developing Vanessa's character and how she would respond in a particular set of scenes. And as I was really trying to focus on how she would behave, I felt like I was sitting down with her and just asking her questions, trying to get her to tell me about her experience, how she got to a certain point, just so that I could write about it. And I almost felt like I was Scott Diller, her new foster dad, who hadn't really spent much time with her, trying to probe, tell me all about yourself. And she's reserved and closed up, and we haven't yet built the trust. And I'm probing her, asking her to be vulnerable about things that I haven't invested the time yet to get to know her, to share with myself, and to give her that platform of trust to be able to speak with me. That's the way I've felt in conversation with Vanessa this week.
And the secondary character that I'm working with is Arnold's friend Reese. And in this scene, which is from Arnold's point of view, I have to be careful as I write to not give any information about Reese's feelings and his thoughts that Arnold would not be able to tell himself based on things that Reese says or the way he acts. And the challenge has been to then, when it's Reese's turn in the conversation, or he's responding to something, to not actually get into his mind and think, how would Reese respond to this, but to stay in Arnold's point of view and think, how would Reese expect Arnold to, or how would Arnold expect Reese to react to this? And so I think there have been times where I'm not actually true to the character of who Reese is. And part of that is we haven't spent a whole lot of time fleshing out Reese's character as much as we have Arnold and Vanessa. But trying to figure out how would he actually react to something like this based on his true desires as a character, based on what's behind the facade. How does that affect how the facade looks to somebody like Arnold, who is just seeing this from the outside?
So both of us are in this seeing a character through somebody else's eyes. You're seeing it like 2 layers deep through how Arnold would see Reese. I'm seeing it through how would I imagine Vanessa to behave? Because sure, Vanessa's a figment of my imagination, but what I know to be true about her, I expect her to be reserved and to not open up and not to tell me these things that I want to know about her. Somehow, I know that another group of people has earned her trust by the time we meet her in the story. And I'm trying to find out, what did they do? How have they been able to earn your trust? And she won't tell me because I haven't spent the time with her yet. But that's been really, I've noticed as I've been thinking about Vanessa, one of the reasons that I seem to really care to be honest and invest in her as if she were a real person is that I know that the way that we're writing her, she kind of represents a class of people who really do experience that kind of thing. I feel almost a sense of responsibility that I need to do her justice. I need to invest the time in her the way I would in a real human being, because she represents very real human beings.
And with Reese, there's also an element of kind of that real life experience of meeting somebody and there being a facade of some sorts that they are trying to, maybe even not intentionally, but they are hiding some true things about themselves, some of their deeper desires and things like that. And it takes time getting to know the person to actually see what's behind that facade. But something that I think is a little bit of an accurate representation of both of our experiences with our characters is thinking to the movie Inception, how there are people within the dreams who are somebody else's projection of that person. They're not the real person. Not
one of the participants.
Right, not one of the participants. One of the recurring examples is the character Mal, who was Cobb's wife before she died. And so because she's dead, it's not actually her who is being involved in the dreams. It is Cobb's projection of who she is. And so the way that she acts in there is the way he expects her to react, not necessarily the way she actually would act. And so I think it's the same type of thing with Vanessa, with Reese. It's difficult to have them act the way that they would act rather than the way that we would expect them to react. Or even in the cases where it's the same, it can sometimes get in the way with Vanessa being closed off. That is actually how she would react.
Right.
And she is acting that way because you're expecting her to, and that makes it difficult to get to the rest of who she is.
And because it's true that there are people who are like Vanessa who really will act that way, there's almost a responsibility not to just dismiss it, but to be true to who Vanessa is and invest the time. So our question for you for this week is, what's an example of a character in a novel that you have felt responsible to do justice to in some way? Let us know that in the comments, and we'll see you again next week.